Do you mind telling us your name and your title?
Sure. My name is Steph Wolenchek, and I'm the director of the GLBT Research Center here at the University of Colorado Boulder.
Anyway, do you mind giving us some general information first? Like, what's your name?
My name is Monica.
And do you mind disclosing your sexual orientation?
I would probably consider myself hetero-curious.
Hi. So do you mind giving us your name and, like, your title, if you have an official one?
I'm Dan West. I'm the ESL Academic Coordinator for Student Academic Services.
Nice. And this is totally optional, but do you mind giving us your sexual orientation?
I am heterosexual.
So what's your name for now?
Oliver.
And do you mind disclosing what your sexual orientation is? You don't have to if you don't want to.
This is completely homosexual and this is completely heterosexual.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like right here.
Okay, so do you mind stating your name and what your title is?
Sure. My name is Kevin Correa. I'm the Assistant Director of the GLBT Resource Center at the University of Colorado at Boulder.
Thank you. Do you mind disclosing your sexual orientation? If not, feel free to pass on that.
Sure. I identify as a gay man.
So do you mind telling us your name?
Lauren.
Okay, and then what are your views on bisexuality?
My views on it?
Yes.
I think I'm writing an essay on that right now, actually. Like, I was talking to, it's basically, like, you get hated on if you're, like, by some people. It's just, like, people try to, like, want one label for you. But, I mean, I agree with it. Some people just don't, like, just kind of go both ways.
I wanted to ask you about your experience with bisexual students.
Okay.
Can you describe any experiences that really stand out to you, or how that's been different than possibly other students you've encountered?
Sure. I think a lot of the students we see are really unique in lots of different ways, and certainly bisexual students would be included in that. Mm-hmm. I think within the community, bisexuals have a very unique experience in terms of having a non-monosexual identity, so being different from people who identify as gay, as well as people who identify as straight or heterosexual, in that they're not just attracted to one gender or sex, but attracted to two or more genders or sexes.
What are your views on bisexuality?
I think I like to compare sexuality to food a lot, and I think that we place way too much importance on how someone's sexuality developed. I mean, we don't care how someone decides to like a certain type of food. It just, it's not that big of a deal, and we shouldn't care so much about sexuality either. And it's possible to be both carnivore and like vegetables, It's not that big of a deal.
Can you tell me about your experiences with bisexual students, and if it differs, how it differs from other students?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. A lot of students that I work with, I don't know necessarily what their sexual orientation is unless they're disclosing it to me. We have what I call a don't ask, do tell policy, so we encourage folks to share and try to encourage folks not to ask what sexual orientation. Of course, sometimes that happens in interviews and things like that. And I think sometimes people make assumptions about sexual orientations as well. But I have worked with a number of students who identify as bisexual or pansexual or queer or fluid, but not to clump all those identities together, but sometimes students having sort of similar experiences. And have found that, I think similar to what we can expect in sort of the broader community is sometimes folks that identify as bi have a harder time finding a home.
Consider
sell out.
It's wrong, or like you're greedy.
If you're bi, you're gay.
You don't know what you want.
I think there's a lot of contesting of identity.
We think male bisexuality is gross.
Promiscuous and just interested in having sex with everyone.
Sexuality does not exist.
Bisexual erasure is a term used that describes the erasing of bisexuality. It's a term that is used that talks about the discrimination and stigmas against bisexuality. It's also a term that appears in the media, in academia, and in everyday life.
Can you explain dichotomy to me? Are you familiar with that term and everything? Can you define it? Sorry about that.
Dichotomy is a contradiction in thinking.
Okay.
What's the term? It's bilineal thinking. Contradictions. Yes.
Dichotomy is a term that is for the tendency of human beings to categorize ideologies and identities and beliefs into two complete opposing absolute categories. Examples of this are good and bad, man and woman, liberal and conservative, and of course gay and straight. The issue with dichotomies is that it creates this issue of needing to create a hierarchy where one part of the dichotomy is put above the other, and so the other is stigmatized. And the other issue is that dichotomies don't give room for other things to exist, like in the sexual dichotomy of heterosexual and homosexual. There's no room for bisexuals to exist, and thus they're stigmatized by both groups of the dichotomy.
How do you feel about bisexual portrayals in the media? Is it accurate or not enough, or
What bisexual portrayals in the media? I haven't seen any recently. So apparently we need more.
I feel like one thing that's good with a lot of celebrities that are bi or gay and they come out, because it really helps other people, and it's kind of just like the TV shows like Glee, where teenagers can go to that for acceptance or just support. So I think that's pretty good.
Heteroflexibility is the behavior of a heterosexual woman or man living in same-sex relations. This is typically done by women and can be seen in the media with things such as MTV's Video Music Awards, at a number of parties. I know it's something that I've seen happen on the Hill not once, twice, more than 3 times. And it's typically done to get the attention of men by women.
Definitely, I think a woman is more characterized as a bisexual. It's never really discussed with men, but with the women, it's generally she's just oversexed, or she's only making out with that girl so she can get attention from guys or whatever.
Then we see female sexuality, and we pursue it as just another. We fetishize it, and a lot of people do that. I even do that. Everybody does that.
I think there is sort of a college stereotype. I think it's sort of directed more towards female-identified folks, that college is this place to experiment. It's when you hook up with people of similar sex, and that is just an experimentation. So I think that is, and I think there's been national publications that kind of encourage some of that at varying times in our culture, saying, college is, just lesbian during college, or, things like that don't really honor kind of the experience of being bi.
Everybody comes to Hollywood. They want to make it in the neighborhood. They like the smell of it in Hollywood. How could it hurt you when it looks so good?
How would you solve, or how do you think society can go about eliminating those stigmas and stereotypes?
Education, talking about it, being open about it, having discussion.
I think there's a number of ways, a lot of the ways any misconception can be counteracted is just presenting facts and evidence and truth, and there are a lot of research studies that have been done that refute a lot of those claims, and so letting people know about that research. I think the more visibility that we create is also great, because I think stereotypes persist when people don't actually know people who identify as whatever the stereotype that, that's being thrown around. So the more people are visible, and the more we can create a space where people are feeling more comfortable being open and visible with their identity, then the more the true diversity of the community can show, and people can shine and be who they are, and people can get to know people as true holistic individuals and not just focus on one aspect of people's identity.
Lots of different tools and things to look at just that relate to social justice and diversity issues. And I think education is a big piece in breaking down stereotypes. I think building community is really important, so folks that do have similar identities feel like they can feel liberated in their identities, and also building really strong allies and communities of allies in all areas, so that folks can advocate, and when there are those stereotypes or judgments being made about bisexuals or biphobias in place, I can think that having folks that can interrupt some of that. So, yeah. Different ways that we offer. One is our safe zone training. So we do talk more generally about sexual orientation and gender identity in particular, but we do talk about bisexuality and just learning some skills. How do you interrupt jokes? How do you break down stereotypes? How do you recognize your own phobias or misunderstandings or miseducation that you carry with you? So some of those things that are tools for lots of different identities that I think can relate to bisexuality. I think also participating in events like Celebrate Bisexuality Day, starting up conversations, bringing up the topic in a positive way, I think are all just a few examples.
There's lots of different ways. We offer lots of what we call points of entry for people to get involved in the community. So that can be anything from just hanging out in the center informally, just in between classes, in the study space, in the lounge area, just hanging out with the people that are here. It can be actually getting involved in our volunteer programs. So whether it's our outreach volunteer program or our peer education volunteer program, those are great opportunities to get involved. There are also now over 10 LGBT student groups on campus, and they're all really doing great things and welcoming of a lot of different people, and one is called Biphoria, and that's a new group that we're excited that is forming on campus that we're definitely wanting to support and see grow and thrive. And so that's would be another great way to get involved. We also have a student advisory board where people can advise the center on programming and events and how we allocate our resources. And so a number of different ways. And we also have different advocacy committees as well. We have there's the Chancellor's Standing Committee on GLBT Issues, and there's also the Transgender Genderqueer Task Force, and we set a number of other committees as well.
Remember that bisexuals are your peers, your best friend, your coworker, your professor, and above all, human beings.
Don't erase or stigmatize them in their feelings.
If nothing else, acknowledge that they exist.